all the time. Seltzer, I think, is more prone to blowing up than.
Yes.
When I was sitting to do like my master's degree defense, I had a bottle and I opened it before it started.
Oh, no.
Like all over my shirt, all over me. I was like, oh, good.
But it didn't deter you.
Yeah, I passed.
You passed.
Success.
Maybe because
Maybe they felt bad.
Grace under pressure.
Okay.
So Lisa, I have particularly hard hearing you. Yeah, just when you speak. Right here. Okay, thank you.
Just tap it and give yourself a.
Huh?
We're live, so we're live up on where the live stream is live, and there you go. Just you're good. Now you got green.
Okay, just when you speak, just make sure you hit you.
I think I need to type anymore. One more minute. We just sit here.
I'm meeting with someone who's interested in running for the board.
I thought they would let me take this off, but I had an actual and they sentenced me to 2 more weeks with it. It does a surprisingly good job paralyzing my wrist.
It's a really unusual looking.
It started out as a
No.
no, it started out as a piece of plastic and they heat it and they mold it to you. And you can I can't tie my shoes with it on because I can't
Anyway, I will still
manipulate the wrist.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. And I'll call the April 15th meeting of the Bethlehem Public Library Board of Trustees to order. First order of business is public participation.
Is Alanda first?
And just to remind everyone, you have 3 minutes for each speaker, and Jeff will let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
You're live too.
I'm barely alive. Anyway, I think it is unprofessional and rude for you not to respond to our letter requesting reconsideration or punishment. Regarding the report, you say preparing it would be time consuming and expensive. Time consuming maybe, but I don't see how it could be expensive unless you hired a consultant, which I doubt. So far, I've heard nothing about our situation except for the rumbling of Andrew Carnegie rolling in his grave. And I do want to say that this is the last time I'm going to speak here because it's obviously a waste of time. And I suspect that some of you may be sympathetic, but are totally powerless. If you ever have your rights trampled on, I hope somebody speaks up for you. Thank you.
Leslie. You have been duplicit and complicit.
Could you please, for my hearing, could you use the microphone? That's gonna be helpful. Thank you.
You have been duplicit and complicit in denying the NP its First Amendment's rights. Libraries are sanctuaries of education and unabridged learning. You have failed to uphold the stated policies of the library on December 4th, the 5th, the 11th, and every day since. You have based your sanctions on lies and the pressure of a group of people who do not want a valid perspective of Zionist history to be discussed. We sold no books, we harassed no one. You did not bother to fulfill a requested investigation concerning actual harassment suffered at the hands of the protesting members of the audience, whose goal was to shut down our free speech rights. One young Palestinian girl was told to her face that all Palestinians should die. I would consider that hate speech. Learning about history is essential if we ever hope to live in a civilized world. Genocide, starvation, and ethnic cleansing are illegal. Nico Pellet was not incorrect to call the IDF a terrorist organization. We have seen with our own eyes in the midst of global condemnation what they are capable of. And yet this board does not deem education about historical and current atrocities as valid. You have sanctioned our First Amendment rights for a year. You have failed to answer our appeal within the library policy time. You simply ignore your responsibilities as trustees of this library. What do you have to say for yourselves?
Pretty quick.
The Bethlehem community stands at a pivotal moment as we consider the future of our Heritage Library. The proposed major renovation project represents an opportunity for our community to enhance our library in a way that will empower us all and promote a sustainable future. The planned improvements from expanded meeting spaces to upgraded heating and cooling systems seem to indicate that the library board has a commitment to fostering a sustainable and inclusive community space. However, amidst the library renovation endeavor, we must address concerns raised by proposed changes to the library meeting room policy, particularly the introduction of rental fees for certain community groups and library approval of meeting content. This shift risks compromising the essence of public space within our library, contradicting the principles of inclusivity and accessibility that define a public library. We must safeguard our library as a true public domain, ensuring it remains open and welcoming to all, irrespective of financial means, and allowing for differing opinions in an era of fundamental rights to free speech and access to information. I think I screwed that up. In an era of political polarization, it is crucial to insist that our library be a steadfast defender of our fundamental rights to free speech and access to information. In addition, the library board had taken a position against BNP in banning the organization from using the library for a year. There's no reasonable justification for this ban, and BNP has not been giving fair hearing. In fact, when we brought our concerns to the board, we've gotten no response at all. What is the board's plan for providing space for controversial topics in the future? By refusing to acknowledge the concerns that BNP has brought to the board, you've not reassured the community that you're providing equal access to the community for all. By banning BNP from the library board has attempted to silence dissent over the all-important issue of the genocide in Palestine. It is a betrayal of the proud tradition of American librarians who provided a first line of defense against the erosion of First Amendment rights and intellectual freedom in this country. As the members of this community embark on this journey to redefine our library's future, let us remember
30
that
seconds.
it is our collective responsibility to shape a space that reflects the diverse needs and aspirations of our community. Let's seize this moment to advocate for a library that serves every member of this community, including us. A library that will facilitate lifelong learning for all of us and provide opportunities for generations to come while maintaining our rights to free speech and upholding the library mission statement. I don't have time to read the mission statement.
Joe Varda.
Hello, I've lived in Bethlehem community for 35 years, raised my kids here, they've gone through the schools. I was very proud of the library and at the time of the Iraq War, when Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace was founded, because the government did a very undemocratic thing, and it was they passed a Patriot Act, they called it. And they came to the libraries and said, if anybody picks up certain books on certain subjects, you have to tell the government who they are and all the information about them. And the library, Bethlehem Library, wrote a statement saying, we think this is undemocratic. And I was very proud of the library. Since then, our own ability to work in this library, Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, and all the programs we've brought to this community have been under attack. First, you told us we can't distribute our literature in the rooms, in the meetings here. You can't sell anything. You couldn't sell a book. Then you told us we couldn't show the videos and the films that we showed unless we first got permissions from the author, an impossible task that has never caused any problem to the library or to us or to our community in the past. Then, when we had a meeting on one of the crucial subjects of the day, what's going on, and called for a ceasefire, like the vast majority of people in this country called for a ceasefire to stop the murder, to stop the genocide, to stop the killing. And people came and attacked us for doing that, attacked our meeting. They weren't punished. We were punished because the speaker, not a member of our organization, sold one of his books out in the when he was going to his car. This is undemocratic. It makes me think we live in Florida, not in New York. I'm opposed to it. I'm going to do everything I can to change this board and to change the library's policy and bring free speech back to this community, starting with the library where it belongs.
Bartolotti?
Hello, I'm a newcomer to the area, as you know. And I'm also new to Bethlehem Neighbours for Peace. I have been to Gaza. I've tried to go to Palestine, the West Bank side of it, but I was arrested and put into jail for an attempt to visit a refugee camp. I'm a long-standing supporter of the Palestinian cause. And I have 3 questions for you. Do you think the massacre of unarmed children and women is to be tolerated? Do you think that there is a genocide happening to rid the land of Palestine of its rightful indigenous inhabitants? And do you think that Zionism, which has worked since 1948 and before, on a scale of intimidation and propaganda and hate and slaughter and devastation, do you think that should be supported? Or do you think it should be banned and spoken about in a free area like a library? Thank you.
Robert Patel.
Good evening, and thank you again. I'm going to change the topic to a little different area and concerning. I have some comments concerning the meeting room policy, which we're going to be discussing later tonight. And I want to focus on 4 or 5 major concerns that we have about the policy. First, I note that 501c3 organizations are given special recognition in the policy, even the ability to extend their special status to community groups when they would agree to sponsor. Is there a rationale, legal or otherwise, for giving 501c3s that status? If so, I think it should be clearly stated and specified in the policy. Otherwise, aren't taxpayers the library's primary constituents? The taxpayers, both as cardholders and as members of community groups, of community groups, I believe should be given priority in use of library resources. Community should come first. Second, one of the aspects of the policy concerns rental agreements. And where I'm particularly concerned is the requirement for general liability insurance that has to be obtained. I think that this can become a significant burden. Is this insurance really needed in all cases? After all, rental spaces cannot be used for public events. So, for example, if a 501c3 organization or a cardholder is limited to only 1 space reservation per month, and they discover they need to meet for a second time, they're going to have to go through rental space and have general liability insurance. I wonder why. What's the purpose of that? Why is liability insurance needed for the second meeting, but not for the first? Is the library unprotected in the absence of its users having liability insurance? Third, how do non-501c3 community groups access space if no 501 organization is willing to sponsor their application? Can a cardholder reserve space for a community group under Section 5 of your policy? Or do community groups have to rent space, obtain liability insurance in order to have a meeting? To me, it's just unclear from reading the policy. Fourth, is there a way in which 30 seconds community groups can present a public event, bring in a speaker on some topic? I don't think that it's possible under the way the policy now seems to be written. They can't seem to do it in rental space or space reserved by card holders because they both prohibit public attendance. Without 501 sponsorship, that option seems to be out. I think it might be possible with 501 sponsorship. I think that would.
It's fine.
Thank you.
And the sliders. I'm not a very good speaker, sorry. I'll try to keep it brief. I'm a First Amendment advocate. And I think that I'm going to start out with a quote from Benjamin Franklin, who I'm sure everyone's familiar. And it says, "Those who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And I think that's the case here. If you don't allow people to speak, you're really infringing on their First Amendment rights. And I don't care who's speaking. Even if I find somebody's opinion abhorrent, they should be allowed to speak. That's our First Amendment. And I'll read, it prevents the government from making laws that abridge the freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. And I think that the Bethlehem neighbors have been unduly targeted just because of our associations. And you know, what the other speaker said about Palestine, very true. 33,000, over 33,000 people dead. And mostly women and children. I don't know. It's not good. And we're on the verge of World War III, so that's not so odd either. Thank you.
Michelle, can I suggest that we go around and introduce ourselves and then explain why this two
Sure, if you
members
want
gone?
to, go ahead, Charmaine.
Okay. I'm Charmaine Singer. I'm co-vice president and a trustee.
Sarah Patterson, trustee.
Sherry Whiting, board track.
Michelle Walsh, also co-vice president.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, director.
Lisa Scoons, trustee and UHLS liaison.
Carolyn Brigatella, secretary and trustee.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is review of the previous meeting minutes on pages 2 through 10.
And maybe one of those. I think there's two. We got two separate. ones.
Right, from the one we did in the story room. So we're just doing the first one.
Correct.
So I'll take a motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Are you doing both?
One at a
So
time.
just the
just
One at a
so-
time, that's what I thought. So moved.
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, raise your hands. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And the next set of minutes starts on page 10. The only thing I noticed on here is Mark Kissinger called the meeting to order, but he actually wasn't here until later. Is this not one we just did?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we should change that.
Yeah.
The meeting was called to order.
So I'll take a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting that took place in the story room.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Next item is the treasurer's report.
Interest income continues to grow. It's just over 106,000. Both the treasury bill and the CD are due in May. We'll be looking at the rates and reviewing our cash position to determine how much to reinvest. We want to make sure we have enough cash flow for the coming months. I'll make a recommendation to the finance committee in early May. So we'll be ready to make those whatever changes we decide on. Expenses are tracking at about 5.5% under budget compared to about 8% last year. Spending will catch up as we approach the end of the fiscal year, especially for library materials. A lot of that spending takes place in the fourth quarter.
So do you need a vote from us then to transfer the funds to pay the Ashley McGraw bill?
No, because we had a vote, a couple of months ago, I
Earlier,
think.
right.
As we're able to transfer up to 750,000. We're just doing it a little bit at a time. I don't want to have too much money sitting in that
Gotcha.
account.
I do recall
Especially
that now.
Yeah, especially towards the end of the year. So we will make sure that we have enough funds in that account to pay the bill.
Does anyone have any questions?
I had a couple questions. So, just for the public, the recommendations on the investment and reinvestments in consultation with the finance committee, who's on the committee? I know Michelle is. Just one.
And Laura.
And
Oh, Laura, okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
And I did notice, I'm sorry, I didn't give you a heads up on this. There was something done to the elevator. Was it just like basic maintenance? It's like,
I think that is the maintenance contract.
okay, great.
on the elevator.
Thank you. No other questions.
All right, so we don't need a vote on this, so let's see.
We do need a vote on the.
Need a vote on it.
Warrants.
The finance report, including the checks.
Okay, so I will take a motion on the financial report.
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so the next item is personnel report on page 21.
Do I get it all on the screen? Okay. One, I have to go away from my record of 0 people for several months. Which makes us very happy. I have one backfill position. So anyway, this is the eventual position. Anytime we post something internally, the internal candidates are allowed to apply for those schedules inside the same job title. So this is the position that popped out of the other end of that. So that because we have a person who is resigning in May. So this is we'd seek to backfill this position for a library clerk part-time for 11.67 hours a week at the contractual rate of $16.26 an hour. Yeah.
Make a motion to approve Jeff's personnel report.
I'll second it. Oh, go ahead, Marcia. Anybody?
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next rather unusual or less usual personnel action is a proposal for the chief election inspector and chairperson, which we are required to have. And we have a proposal from Judy Kehoe, who is the former treasurer of Bethlehem School District and acted as their chief election inspector official for years. And so has put in a proposal to be our chief election inspector for the vote that happens that's scheduled to take place on it.
And we need a motion to accept her proposal.
We do. Yeah.
So moved.
And I will just say, worked with Ms. Kehoe for a number of years at the Board of Ed, saw her run just about every election while I was there, including bonds. So I speak highly of her. She does say something about coming to board meetings, I think, afterwards.
Yes.
I would say we take her up on that offer.
Yeah, thank you. And she's also offered, there's an hourly rate in here because she's offered to be my phone a friend. The library hasn't held an on-site election in more than 20 years. So because she's so familiar with the requirements of running that, she's offered to help me get that election put on and make sure it's fair, square, and legal.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we welcome her expertise. Okay, next item on the agenda is the director's report.
Okay, I'll try to keep this relatively short. Just some quick updates on the building project. We had our meeting on April 10th. The architects were here all day long. They did several different things that day. They had 2 meet the architect times. There were more than 50 people were here to interact with the architects out in the library. At that time, they brought in some new graphics and those on whiteboards, and we put those up in the hallway, including the opportunity for folks to be able to comment and leave some post-it notes on a board in the hallway. So we continue to get new post-it notes. It's great. Lots of great ideas, interesting interactions as people on those post-it notes are interacting with each other out there. You know, someone said fireplace, and other people are like, no fireplace. So it's just interesting to see those opinions and get all that out. I was excited to see that conversation would continue. So we're going to keep track of those comments. We may have to clear the board to make room for more people to be able to leave their comments, but we'll track all those comments. We'll keep track of them. We'll keep them in a database and make sure they're available, send them to all of you, and as well as send them to the architects for their consideration. We had a really good meeting. We had to have a meeting between the architect and our attorney as we identified key dates in there. You know, those two processes are separate, but they do touch each other in some places with the seeker process and with the election process. So that was good. And then we talked about, you guys were here for the sustainability charrette, where we talked about sustainability. And I think that that also took place on April 10th. And I think that was a really good meeting. And then Jen continues to work with the school district to, as they're coming into their election season, there's some rule changes about early voting, and the staff at the school district are amazing and have offered to share their expertise with us as they go through this regular election cycle, so that we can have a document that time document. So as we move forward to the election, the referendum vote in October will be in good shape. So it's good for us to have a chance to observe an election as we do the run up to the election. So I know there was some concern about a planter. Remember when we last fall, when we got rid of the bricks? First of all, I just want to say, asphalt, awesome. Very little tripping and freezing, easy to scrape. So I don't normally praise asphalt, but I'm very pleased with the asphalt. But we did put another planter out there. So as we come into spring, if it ever stops raining, we'll put some plants out there and try to get some flowers and brighten up the plaza a little bit. Seed Library, speaking of brighten things up, Seed Library is up and available and has been incredibly popular, as it always is. So people are here. We got rid of this sort of inventory control online ordering part of this, which was complicating our lives excessively. People just come in and pick up their seeds, mark down how many seeds packets they take, and let us know what they're taking. It's made that a lot easier. So can't talk enough about the eclipse. I will try not to go on and on about this, but the eclipse dominated our life for like 6 months. Now it's over. Unfortunately, on the day of, here on our plaza, we did have a little viewing party, sunny all morning, and then those low clouds came in just in time to cut off. Some folks who were on our plaza were able to see it just a little bit through the clouds, but it really it wasn't a great viewing time here in Bethlehem. But we handed out more than 2,000, or no, sorry, we gave enough eclipse classes and viewers to the school district for every child in the school district to have a set of classes. Now, we did not know when we ordered this time that they were going to close school early. That hadn't been talked about. We had to order these months and months before that. So I still think it was good for us to have done that, and the students were able to have that. I was worried about kids on the bus during the eclipse time, and I figured at least if we made the classes available to them, they'd be able to do that. They apparently had a really popular eclipse viewing party over at the middle school. There were lots of kids there, so we were glad. Great partnership with the school district. And we just mentioned in here that we handed out so many eclipse classes. Some were from a NASA grant, some were funded by the Friends, and then some came from New York State. So we just got great partnerships all the way around with the eclipse. And I won't have to deal with another eclipse in my career. I'm super happy about that. So our book.
I was just going to say, I heard from several patrons that they were very thankful that the library was handing out the glasses to students throughout the district. And thanks to the Friends too for helping with that endeavor. I really heard a lot of positive feedback.
Thank you. That's awesome. Getting the glasses into people's hands is important, right? Vision safety is important. We had lots of conversations here in the library. People were like, well, how many seconds can I stare at the eclipse? I'm like, 0 seconds. 0 seconds is the number of seconds you're allowed to stare at the eclipse. So it was good for us to hand them out. Libraries have become this default place to hand out eclipse classes. It really started with the 2017 eclipse. And, Christine McGinty was way on that back then. We were kind of a leader in our area on that. And I was glad that we were able to continue that for this one. And Bookie Monster was ready, as you can see, was ready for the eclipse.
Well, I also want to say, as a parent of 2 children who are in the district, it was super nice to not have to worry about where I was going to get them from. And I saw other people like scrambling. And then they started an initiative, I don't know if you know, that they collected the used glasses and they're gonna send them to Latin America for like the next eclipse, so they're getting
Fantastic.
used down the chain.
And that actually brings up another question, Jeff. I was wondering, you said you used glasses are being collected at the information desk.
Yep.
For how long will you be collecting them? Indefinitely? Or
I mean, probably not indefinitely. Maybe we'll give it a good month. I mean, just
All
give it, because it wasn't, that wasn't part of our initial publicity. I wish now it had been oversight on our part, but we'll leave it up. We'll collect it for a good long time, and then we'll, you know, we're gonna, I think we're doing that in partnership with the school district ourselves. So we're in good shape.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so, and I know we had some questions on this, but just really quickly, we have a new print from home system for our museum passes. They've been incredibly popular. It allows Bethlehem card holders to reserve passes. About half of our passes work with our system. The other half of the passes aren't up to speed on our electronic system yet, and the passes are just the same as they've always been. The passes are in on the shelf. You check them out. You take them with you for 3 days. This pass allows people to request, if you're in the Bethlehem School District, Bethlehem card holder, you can request a pass on a given day, and then it just takes the pass out of circulation for that one day, right? So normally the pass would circulate for 3 days. That pass would go with one person for 3 days. Now it goes just on that specific day, which makes them more available for people. So just in the first month, we launched on March 28th, and we had 41 reservations already placed just in that first part of the month. So still experimental in our area. We're the first library in Upper Hudson to be using this system, although some of our surrounding area libraries have gone all in on this. So we'll continue to monitor this. We'll tweak any procedures and policies that we have to, but you know, we're pretty pleased with the outcome so far. And then I have to say it's a red letter day. The March 2024 was the first time our door count has exceeded 20,000. I have been hoping for 20,000 since literally February of 2000. So this is really good for me. You know, our circulation has really come back in a robust way, came roaring back after the pandemic, but in-person use of the library has been slower. So it's just nice for me to see, you know, a month where we had 20,000 people coming into the library, and that's getting us back to a more normal physical use of the library space. So I'm happy about that. Won't go through all the programs in detail, but there's lots of awesome programs. The book bracket, I put a picture of that in there. It's going to end shortly. So if you want to vote on the book bracket, there's still time. Lots of Eclipse tie-in programs. So we handed out glasses to folks at 3 different programs that were tied into the Eclipse. Lauren, one of our librarians, went to the extravaganza, which, if you remember, was supposed to be on the.
I can't believe, I'm very impressed with everyone that it still took place.
Yeah, the library didn't have power. The library was closed, and Lauren went down to the town park, and the families that went there said they were really happy. Even though many of their houses had no power, they were happy to have something to do, and they chased eggs around in the snow, I guess. So, amazing. So 80 people went. I think that attendance would have been a lot higher if the weather had been fairer, but I think the people who went were pleased that we were there, and just kudos to Laura to make it happen. So lots of good school outreach. I do like to mention this here. I think it's important that we mention that's a premium service that we have, and I think it really is popular. That partnership that we have with the school district is really important. I do want to go back to also, as we're talking about meeting rooms, I have to keep hammering on this fact about the early literacy programs. The attendance at early literacy programs continues to increase and increase. Hello. And it's getting to the point where people are coming expecting us that most weekday mornings, other than Friday, that we have a program for kids. They might not even be aware if it's a toddler time or music and movement. They just know and have come to expect that we have programs here. And those programs have to take place in here. There's no way we're fitting 50 or 65 participants into the story hour room. We used to do the majority of our story programs, our early literacy programs, were done in the story room. They just don't fit in that room at all anymore. So, you know, we're taking this room to do those. Even at 65, it's a squeeze in here. And I know that is taking this room away from the public, but the first and primary use of this room is for library programs. So this is, it's just an important part of what we're doing. And it just, if you hear about that, I want you to be aware of it and just sort of know that this is a conscious decision on our part as we're expanding how many of these programs, because the public is expecting us to be doing a lot of early literacy programs. It's just, they continue to be super popular. They were all but gone during the pandemic. So this is one of those things when we talk about being over 20,000, having a door count over 20,000, that's what we're doing this on the back of, right? It's as people are returning to the library with their children and participating in those programs. So.
And are you at all turning people away from some of these sessions or these open?
Not mostly. We would if because there's capacity on the room. We had during April break week, we had a Elephant and Piggy story time, not a puppet people, not a raptor program, not a special. It was special, but it wasn't outside performer. It was just our staff doing an Elephant Piggy, and we had the room at 100. And I had heard different numbers, but let's say a reasonable average is probably about 30 people were turned away from that program during vacation week. Now it's vacation week. Okay, we know we're going to be more popular, but we have typically seen crowds over 100 for children's programs when it's a music program, when it involves a turtle or a lizard or eagle, or the puppet people or Jester Jim or something like that, sort of a more premier thing. This was our staff putting on, I think, a great program, but showing that there was need. And again, weather wasn't great that week. I think people were looking for something to do with their kids, and we were here to do that. So that's our job, to be doing that. So yes, sometimes when we're at 65 this room, because we're in this room, if we were in the story hour room, we'd have to cap that at 30. And here, when we have 65 people come in, we can have 65 people in this room, though it does start to get tight with bouncing children in here. So it's nice to see. That's the point of the room. So. Go outreach, and then just talk about a couple meetings. It's boring, but the phone system, we have like an internal phone system that runs on a computer that is in the library. Our vendor has said that is end of life. Like they're going to stop supporting our phone system. So we're investigating what that means. Essentially, everybody has moved phones into the cloud. For the prices of some of these, it might be easier to buy everybody have an iPhone and sit on their desk. If they could transfer the calls back and forth, I'd go in that direction. Anyway, we're going to figure this out. I don't want you to be surprised as we go forward. You'll hear me talking about this again. It's not exciting, but there it is. And then I did include a couple pictures from my recent trip to the Public Library Association conference, where they had oriented a room horizontally. I'm going to call this horizontally in the long axis of the room. And then a picture that was vertically presented more in the sort of a traditional meeting room way. Just as we're talking about these different orientations of the room, I just couldn't, it's easier for me to picture what these look like when there were human beings running around. And I did, this is a better room, so fair enough, with a higher ceiling. But it was interesting to me how much closer everybody was to the speaker here in the middle. So just something to know. Okay, I do have a few statistics here I want to point out. Big increases in program attendance overall, as you can see here, from a year ago. Texting me in the middle of the meeting. Okay, so I think Mark is joining us, so he'll be remote. So really big increases in program attendance, really big increases in outreach attendance, which I like to see. But the first month where I can say since we reopened after the pandemic, or even really before we reopened after the pandemic, that we had just a slight drop in circulation. So 0.0. It's a matter of 16 items, but I was, that's the first. So we had 56,459 this month, and last year, this time we had 56,475. But at the same time, door count went up from 18,900 to over 20,000 this month. So, continued increased use of the physical space is the story for this month. And then just lots of good statistics here for that represent physical use of the library space.
And you think the reason for that 0% change is just the move toward more digital media?
Digital's in there. It's overall circulation. I think the circulation came roaring back through 2022 and 2023, we saw really big, I mean, as the library reopened, I hate talking about the pandemic, I'm sorry. But after, as we reopened, the circulation came roaring back. And then we got back to what would have been a pre-pandemic normal pretty quickly. And then the door count lagged way behind that. And it was the separation of circulation from door count was the sort of the story. That was the unusual thing for us. Usually those two things track right with each other. It was that circulation came back so quickly, and then door count took a while to catch back up, and we're still in the middle of that catch up. So
My math might be wrong, but I don't think it is. Are you talking about a difference between 15 items?
15 books.
Yeah,
15
so
items. Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
essentially.
For a second, I was like, am I missing something?
No.
Check that again.
That's why it goes at 0. It's 0%. It's 0. It's below the noise of another. I'd have to add some more decimals, but it is interesting because we have seen increases every month over month since March of 2020. So it's just something to note.
A blip.
But an interesting thing. So, and then all the PLA reports from the folks that were able to attend, and big thank you for the board for supporting continuing education. Yeah, go ahead.
Or does it indicate that people are, because the door count is up by 2,000, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that people are getting what they need by using resources while they're in the library instead of taking them out?
Possibly. I mean, we get into the whys of this, and I'm going to be less certain about that. I know what the numbers are saying, but I think what I see anecdotally is those other uses of the library space. So you think about right after we reopened after the pandemic, people came in, they picked up their book, and they left. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the ultimate in not using the library space except for to come in and get stuff. Reintroduce programs, those came back. Studying is back up a little bit more, not to where it was pre-pandemic, but just more of those other uses, meeting rooms, people coming in and just hanging out in the library. Those uses continue to increase. And it's been interesting how much more slowly those have come back than the sort of more traditional, checkout number. And normally I would have said before that I could tell you what the circulation was on any given day, circulation and door count. Just tracked right with each other. Those two, if I plotted them out, those two numbers just went right up and down with each other. And the interesting part was that there was a little bit of a separation. So I don't know. I don't know why. So lots of good sessions at PLA this year. For me, worth the price of admission alone was the Safety by Design course. This was taught by an architect out of Cleveland, worked with both the Columbus Metropolitan Library, big urban library, and the Buffalo and Erie County Library System, with some folks that I actually know from Buffalo who were part of the class. And it was interesting when they talk about security and design. We've been having these discussions here. What they're saying is in these libraries that for security in a library, it's less about hardening the building like you would do in a school. Because in a school, your primary response to any sort of violence is shelter in place. And in a library, it's exits everywhere and everybody gets out. That's the response that the library is. We don't have control of the patrons in the same way that a teacher has control of students. And so what they did in these libraries was actually add more glass. So you want to be able to have staff routinely able to see not just the entrance to the library, but actually outside the library, and allow patrons to see outside the library. We won't go into the case studies, but it was just an interesting, different way to think about what security means, and allow people to make their own decisions about what's happening inside or what's happening outside, allow people who are outside to see inside, allow people who are inside to see outside, and have lots of exits. And that was a little bit of a turnaround in thinking for me. I wasn't clear on that, but this is, it made a lot of sense when they were talking about that. How you get to security and how you decrease impacts of violent acts in libraries. So, and there's, we have blessedly few of those things happen here. And I think some libraries, this is a daily occurrence. And this is how they trim all trees up to 8 feet. Never let anything from a tree get below 8 feet. Nothing on the ground cover can be above 3 feet, just so you maintain that sight lines. In the same way, inside the library, no shelves over 4 feet, no shelves over 4 shelves high. So it allows the sight lines of the building so you can see and patrons can see and make their own security decisions for themselves as they look across the library, and they're just able to have a wider scope of vision. So it was interesting and a little bit of a mind bender.
So no stacks is what?
No, have stack, but
Low ones.
stacks,
Low stacks.
but 4 high. Right? I mean, and again, you can have higher shelves on the walls where they're not blocking anybody's vision. But when you're talking about it being able to see across a wide space of the library, and some of these libraries are enormous. So, just being able to look out, they showed an example of one of the Columbus Metro libraries where the information desk was there. The shelves went out, glass entrance to the door and lots of glass, and they could see all the way out onto the plaza. And, think about our library, for instance, where our librarians stand at the information desk. They can't even see what's going on in the hallway without coming out from behind the desk, let alone being able to see out past the hallway and then outside the building in really either direction. So our sight lines in this building are really curtailed. So that was an interesting thing to note for me. And so there were lots of other great sessions there, but I just wanted to bring that out as a particular note. And I already talked to Suzanne a little bit about that as well. Lots of conversations about censorship in libraries and book challenges. I think there's a lot of that going on nationally right now, and I'm glad I'm in New York. So
I really liked how between you and Phil and Robert and Anne, while there was some overlap, for the most part, you took different classes, and so you bring all of that varied information back to our library. And I think that's such a worthwhile.
I would love to say that was all thought out and planned, but I think generally each of us have we're focusing on different things, and I think it happens. It happens naturally. It was really good. But yeah, I think piling 4 of us into the same session, other than the sort of the big ideas, opening sessions, having us all be in there together is less valuable, just like you're saying. And unfortunately, 2 of their keynote speakers were unable to attend. They canceled that, at last minute. So it just happened. So I did get chased by a tornado, so that was fun. I remember why I don't live in the Midwest. Okay, so that is probably it for my director's report. Thank you.
I do appreciate the staff taking time to make the summaries to let us know what they attended. And I appreciate the perspective on sight lines, because I'm the one who keeps talking about glass.
Yeah.
An idea I just had, we haven't talked about cameras.
Yep.
So as we think about the building project, if in fact you want to increase visibility in the hallways or outside, obviously not in the library.
Yes. You got it. And I think the architects are aware of that and have talked to us about that. So that's a conversation that will be forthcoming from them about that. So you're thinking on exactly the same thing. And the architect did talk about those security films. They're not bulletproof by any stretch of the imagination, but they're damage resistant. And I think it just, can increase safety as well. But there's, all of these things have a cost. So it's just a lot of options.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the UHLS report. Lisa?
Yep, we met last week, and usually that's a very calm, not too exciting meeting. And now UHLS is in the news because of a decision by Schenectady Public Library to leave their systems, SALS and Mohawk Valley, right?
You got it. Yep.
And now they want to join Upper Hudson. So there were some presentations at the meeting and lots and lots and lots of questions. There doesn't seem to be like a time frame that this needs to be decided on, but I think a lot of questions have to be answered before the board takes any action on it. It's really kind of, I've spoke a little bit with Jeff. It's not really something that's happened before. So it should be interesting to see how that works its way out. And along with that, we're doing our regular work of this time of the year, which is reviewing program awards and construction grants and all that kind of stuff. So busy for Upper Hudson right now. So That's it.
Great, thanks.
Yes, big doings for the library
Yeah.
world. Like, I know it doesn't, it's probably not for the general public, it's not something of all that much interest, though it did get press, so it's
It did,
unusual, but this is politically for libraries. This is kind of a big, very unusual, very, very.
All right, under new business, the first item we have is construction manager.
Yep, so this is a question that I have. I don't have anything, there's nothing in the board packet about this. It's just when we should be receiving submissions soon for folks who want to act as a construction manager for the library. Which board members would like to be included on the evaluation team? How, we're gonna be scheduling those interviews, and I just wanted to have that discussion here about who wanted to be on that. And the issue might be that there could be as many interviews as you want to hold as a board. Like how many folks do you want to interview? But it would be best if whatever board members are there to be at all of the interviews.
I'd be willing to scheduling provide. I've done it before. I think it might be helpful to have another board member on there, but I've gone through a whole construction manager hiring process interviews before, just in terms of that expertise. But I'd be willing to if that's what's needed.
Yeah, I think the plan is to try to have two board members, if possible, along with Jeff and myself, to review the submissions from the construction managers. I'm going to try to develop a document summarizing everything. So it'll be a little bit easier because I imagine each submission is going to be multiple pages, a lot to read, right? And if we have a chance to go through all that and maybe make recommendations of who we think should come before the board to be interviewed, rather than interviewing all five. If it's apparent and easy enough to weed out one or two, if it makes sense, we thought that might be a good process. And then there would just be maybe 3 construction managers to bring in, schedule an appointment and interview.
What's the timeline for when they're gonna happen?
It's a pretty quick timeline because we would love to try to make a recommendation, have a recommendation at the next board meeting and vote on the construction manager.
And
So the RFPs are due tomorrow or no, Wednesday,
Thursday.
Thursday.
There's
Okay.
likely to be an addendum, and we had some of the construction managers that were recommended to us by the architect have notified us ahead of time that they're not going to be making a submission. So we'll see what that looks like. So there may be a second round of requests, even though we put this in the spotlight, which is our paper of record. We've been given another list of folks that we could send it out to, and with an addendum. So
that'll certainly change the timeline a bit.
So Shar, you say in terms of recommending to the board for people to interview by the next meeting or to hire? When you said by the next board meeting to make a recommendation to
hire.
So that means.
Well, that's probably not going to happen
Okay.
now. If we've got, we're going to have some new submissions that will
Right.
come in a little bit later, past the due date that we had.
So what I want to make sure I understood, then the process would be for a subcommittee, a couple of trustees, Jeff and yourself, to look through the applications, and then the full board would do the interviews, or that would be the interviewing? Because I thought you were implying that the full board would then interview whoever we recommend.
no, I don't think we
I
should
didn't-
do that. I think that'd be very difficult to schedule. I
Yeah.
think we should, what I was hoping to, okay, I'll just say,
Yeah.
what I would hope to get out of tonight is a couple people that are willing to participate in the interview. If everybody agrees on it, then we just move forward with that interview process. And then we come back to the full board. Obviously, we would, no contract can be executed without the full board, but it would be some recommendation from that committee back to the full board.
And the reason to do it within a month is, as opposed to the flexibility between May and June, somewhere in there.
I think it's because Sherry and I had a chance to talk about this. I think it's unlikely at this point that we're going to be able to have a recommendation for you by the May board meeting. Possible, again, stars align, everything works perfectly. It's still not impossible, but it seems highly unlikely.
Okay.
I did just get a text from Mark who said he would be willing to be in on the interviews as well. So
Sure. Yeah, because we also have to formulate questions and things like that. So it sounds like perhaps the goal would be at least no later than June.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I can do it.
Okay, so we have two, we'll move on.
We do? Does
Yeah.
that work for everybody? Is that?
Well, I assume if anyone else would like to join, that would be possible.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so the next item is property consolidation.
Okay, I don't have too much of an update on this. We are at, I think, I'm losing track of the board meetings. We are at conceptual agreement with whereby the plan that we move forward with, and the school district understands this as well, is that the 4 properties would be owned by the school district for the purposes of this project. How that gets worked out between the school district and the library 10 years down the road is open for discussion, where the property ultimately ends up with, but for the purposes of the project, we're going to move forward with the school district owning those 4 pieces of property, and they're understanding that this is coming their way. They obviously have to vote on it for it all to be official, but that's the process that we're moving towards. Everybody's at conceptual agreement. Hopefully at the May meeting, I will be coming to you with a formal resolution that will kick that process off. But that's where we are with property consolidation.
I think it would be helpful to know the district when that's going on their board agenda, even for discussion, because it might be interesting to have a couple of our board members there just in the audience to hear what the discussion.
Absolutely. So and the school district is in no way the hold up to this process right now. So they are waiting for us to move forward, and then they can respond to that move. But
so you need that resolution first, is what we're saying. Got it.
The next action is ours, and then they know it's all queued up. I was in contact with the folks from the school district about timing, because they were saying, oh, if we have our meeting tonight and that resolution were to move forward, that would have been very quick. Then what's their next board meeting and how they would take that in. So I think the ball's in our court. Now that we are at conceptual agreement about what this process looks like, getting those specifics put down, their attorney is working with our attorney. They are getting all of that hammered out, and then we'll have 2 resolutions. We'll pass our resolution, and they will discuss their resolution, where I imagine it will pass as.
All right, next item. Well, is there any other new business?
Well, I have old lost build items that I need to talk to you about.
I skipped right over that.
It's all good.
Old lost and build items.
Another very super exciting library thing. So Upper Hudson is in the process of purging build items that are older than 7 years old. They made an offer to us to do this for all libraries, and many libraries are taking them up at it. At this, they're working with their boards to figure out how long should an old lost thing be on an account. So we can't delete an account as long as there's an item on it. It just sits there. The account sits fallow. Nothing happens with the account. So the statute of limitations on these is 7 years. So they're really not enforceable after that amount of time. So what we are recommending is that we purge those items that have been lost in build for more than 7 years, purge them out, and that'll allow us to eliminate the cards and get those out of the system. So this will manifest for you. You might have seen in the catalog, if you go in and you see an item that there's a title and there's no items attached to the title. Have you ever come across anything like that? There's no items visible. It's an older item usually. Well, it was like the last item is we're holding on to that bibliographic record, that book record or movie record, because it's holding on to this lost item that's just sitting in the system, even though there are no items available. So that really confuses our patrons. Sometimes they get a request placed on that, and so we have to manage this. So it's a good idea. Just as we purge patrons that haven't used the system in a long time, we should be purging these as well. So my recommendation is that we purge all of the items that are more than 7 years old, where the charges are less than $150. So if the charges exceed that, and there's not, Phil, very many of them at all, then we would hold on to those just so we would know who those folks are if they tried to come back to the library in the future.
Okay, so we need, I'll take a motion.
So I just want to say, this did not come up at Upper Hudson.
Because it's not really an Upper Hudson decision. It's a thing that the staff at Upper Hudson, because they manage the online system, they can do for us. They were just outlining the process. And they were like, please clean up this old garbage. That was their request to us. But it's a financial decision, and it has to come to boards. That's why it's not a Jeff decision. It seems unusual that I'd be talking to you about the the intricacies of the database, but because there's money involved, it has to come to the board, and you guys are the fiduciary, so.
So this is basically getting AR off the books that you're never going to collect.
Correct. Just recognizing that it's not coming back.
And in most cases, it predates all systems that went to fine free, so.
Correct. And in fact, when you talk about systems, it predates this current iteration of our circulation system. So the information that we have in there about what those items are is migrated data.
Yeah.
It doesn't operate as normally in our system. And so it just causes the staff a lot of hassle. There's a lot of staff people who are way new since we switched to the new system, and they've never seen one of these items actually come up, and we have to deal with them. It doesn't get handled in our financial system the way real items do. So it's. Yes.
Do you ever consider replacing something? Like if something's disappeared for 7 years, I assume it's not necessarily that popular, but do you keep track of like then replace something?
We will have long replaced it. If it was something that we wanted to replace, we would have long ago replaced it by then. Yeah, so the lost items get looked at pretty frequently for whether it's something we want to reorder.
And because most libraries are now fine free, they become lost a lot faster.
They do.
So-
But then, then mostly things that become lost and then they come back, right? So they go into build status, they come back, no harm, no foul. This is stuff that's been sitting there for 7 years, just hanging out in the database, and the patrons are not using the library. They can't check anything out. It's just sitting there following the database.
And so you don't know though how much the total is.
Yeah,
Is it a few?
it's there.
I think we do. Second page. So. Yeah, $19,000. Yeah.
And it will expunge the lost items, but also the patron's account.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't they have already been removed though?
The patron, they can't be, because they have this fine on there when we have an inactive card. So if there's someone that comes and gets a card, either they move away or they just don't use the card for whatever reason. After 3 years, they become an expired patron, and then we remove them from the database. So we're not reporting them as an active patron. When there's a lost book on it, used to be fines, we don't have that anymore. When there's a lost book on there, we don't delete it, because in year 5, and they come in, we say, hey, you've got this, you've got items, you have to take care of that before you come there.
So how many patrons is that?
Say it's at least the number of items.
Well, it's not one patron per item, but some patrons have multiple items, but it's not going to be, it wouldn't be someone who has 10 items, because that would take them over the limit where we're saying we'd like to keep track of anybody with more than $150 worth of lost items.
So it's basically $19,000 you're never gonna see anyway.
Correct.
Okay. Like there's no hope in getting that.
No,
That's not like we're giving up 19,000 because it's there, but we would never get it anyway.
And we had, not to get too far in the weeds on this, but we had an individual patron who checked out a number of items, sort of libraries of things items, and during the pandemic, and we tried to take them to small claims court and just, it did not work. It just fundamentally didn't work. So the small claims court didn't know why we were there. They weren't particularly happy about it, and you can't get blood from a stone anyway. So where this person was difficult to locate. So we ended up just spending way more staff time than the items represented trying to find remedy to this, and it just did not happen. So
once we take this action, this should never be back.
Well, the question is, we can take this action, and well, my question is this something that we can do every year? I would like to do it every year on a rolling basis, just at that 7 years, just sort of let it drop off the back as we move forward. So, yeah.
And eventually you wouldn't need to do it because now we're fine free.
Well, these are lost. So we're not lost fee free, right? So if someone loses the items and don't bring them back, they still have to pay for them, or they're damaged. So
unless they wait 7 years.
Unless they wait 7 years. I mean, that's the long con, right? It's that is some real dedication. It's real dedication.
All right. Okay, so we do need to vote on this.
Yes, because it's way over my limit.
So did you have something you want to say, Charmaine?
No, I was getting ready to say so moved, but go ahead.
Okay, so we just need a motion on what would you call this, lost fees.
Lost items over 7 years old.
Items over
Yeah.
7 years old.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, are there any other new business?
I do have new business, so I'm sorry, much to your chagrin. So I'm gonna hand these out to you. I have a proposal for a ductless split system replacement. I think I've talked about this with you a little bit. This is the ductless split heating / air conditioning unit that is in the IT office. It was installed in our HVAC renovation. It has been repaired at least 3 times to relatively high expense and no remedy. And at this point, I just want to replace it. So the reason we need a separate ductless split unit, I can't hear you, Mark, but I can, well, I'm getting text from you. I'll work on that in a minute. So the
Just gonna log on too.
Hmm?
Attorney's up there.
Yeah, I see she's in there. Yeah, but but I can't hear Mark, so I don't know why. Well, anyway, okay. So we'll deal with that in a second. The price to replace this, we've got 3 different quotes from works over 3 different contractors. The price to do it is $9,450 to replace the system.
For one split.
For one ductless split. Yeah, it's not like your house ductless split. It's a commercial size ductless split. So this is in the IT office. When we shut down the HVAC system for long weekends, the IT office continues to generate quite a bit of heat, and it was the original reason it was installed, so that provided a separate air conditioning into that room to keep it from overheating and keep the service from overheating. So it just doesn't work. It just flat doesn't work. It hasn't worked right since year 3. So
Also this understanding that this is a commercial unit and not a home unit. I have this brand and Christopher did it at my house and they're great. Both for air conditioning, and I'm going to guess that this unit can provide dehumidifying services as well as heat. That comes in handy, especially in an isolated space like an office in the winter and summer. So I'm supportive.
Well, considering we're looking at a possible building project, would this carry over?
that's the hard part. Likely not. I mean, I'm like the plaza, I'm trapped in the same kind of question. It's a significant amount of money that I need to, it has to work. This has to be, and the system is not, it's not being repaired. We tried 3 times to make it work and unsuccessfully each time. We spend a significant amount of money replacing the head unit inside. It's not working. It needs to be replaced. So that's the hard part.
And so explain, I think I understand, but explain to me again, what's the impact if we don't do this?
Then we don't have sufficient air conditioning in the IT office
Where the servers.
where the servers are.
Which is bad.
So it's served by the sort of the general HVAC system of the building, and it gets air conditioning, but not sufficient to the electrical and heat load to the building. The system that we had when we did the HVAC renovation was designed that this would supplement that because of the particularly high heat load in that area. The same thing was in the studio where there's a ductless split. It's not the right one. Otherwise, I just steal the one out of the studio and put it in IT. But it because of the lights and the equipment that's in the studio that had that extra heat load. So it was designed to have this extra system to supplement it.
That's not uncommon. I mean, if you go into a server room in most places, the
They all have
temperature.
It's going to have its own.
Yeah, they all have extra air.
Or it might have another way we could have gone was for it to, if the engineers had spec, they could have had its own little rooftop unit, which would have done the same thing. It just, that wasn't the design that we got. So we got the system that we got, and this was designed to supplement that. So.
Okay, well, before we vote on this, could I ask for a pause so that you can try and work out Mark's?
Give me a
just
second.
A minute's pause here. so
Thank
we
you.
can get set up.
So let me see Cole, but I don't see there's Mark. Jeez. Oh, okay. I need.
And then when you restart, I have a question.
Yeah.
About how this works into the agenda and the meeting, like where we are at the meeting.
Mark's coming back in as a panelist now. And we can see you, Mark, if you're muted, but if you want to try to give us oh, there you are. You want to give us
Can you
you
hear me? Hello?
want to say something?
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there. Can you hear me?
Give me a sec.
Say, is it just me, or can you hear?
No.
No,
I was
he's
gonna
not here.
say.
I mean,
It's not just.
way too quiet.
Speakers. All right, Mark, you want to give us another try?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, way better. So go
Great,
through.
thank you. Sorry I couldn't be here. They're working on the budget, so.
Okay, so you're in now. We got you.
Thank you.
So you're restarting the meeting?
Well, yes, the meeting never stopped, but I'll go back to the board packet here. I'll share this out. Okay, so now we're back at it.
Okay, so I just have a question,
Yes,
a point of order thing. So I realize the attorney is here.
yes,
Is the attorney here for an agenda item or for the executive?
executive session.
Okay. So blunt point, are we paying for the attorney to be here right now? I.e., if we don't get to that item for another hour, we're paying for an hour for the attorney to be here.
Yes, I think she's available to us.
So. Question, point of order. There, I believe there's a possibility to go into executive session, vote to go into executive session now. To use time with her now that we're paying for, and then re-enter public, or to continue a public meeting and then go into executive session while the attorney waits for us. I just want to point that out.
Yes.
Are those the options correct as you understand them?
Yes.
Thank you.
As I think we're heading up on a discussion of the policy, while I don't think the attorney is participating in that today, I think that it may be useful for her to hear what we have to say.
Okay. You need a motion on this, though.
Yes.
Yes,
So I'll take a motion to approve the cost to replace the mini split.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
thank you.
Opposed, motion carried. So just so I'm clear, we are continuing at least through the public meeting policy part. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so next is old business and patron point software proposal.
Yeah, so we had said several months ago that we would reconsider at this meeting the patron point proposal, which we included in the budget as something that there is sufficient funding for. But we had not voted to move forward with it. In the meantime, Phil had renegotiated with our Spring Share to have our setup reduced by $1,500, and they agreed to hold that through the end of May. So we could take some time to talk about this here tonight, and then also talk about this at the May meeting. Is that correct? Yes. I just want to make sure I'm not misquoting at the May meeting as well, in case we don't want to make a decision on this evening.
So what's the all-in cost for this thing? I mean, I couldn't figure this out by this attachment. 15 grand? Okay,
15 grand for the first year.
okay.
And then year two, you can see down this page, it's 11,585 each year.
Okay. And it's a 2-year contract?
3-year contract. So the year 2 and 3, you got a year 3 in here as well.
Okay.
That wasn't clear.
Got it.
So is that, it says on the footnote, it says there's also a transaction cost or something. Will vary depending, if you look at go up to the next page 45. Go the other way,
Yeah, just the way.
Sorry.
that's right.
Right
Transaction
there.
fee. Transaction fees,
So they're talking about texting.
So the more we use it, this is the base cost, and then the more we use it, the more we pay.
Correct.
Okay. And what's it like transaction fees are like, what would that be? Like
It's text message transactions, right? So
31 cents a text?
I don't think so. No, it'd be 1 cent
Like
a
a
text.
cent.
And then I think the verified transactions are,
Transactions are when we accept new patron accounts.
okay, and then they verify. So we accept a new patron account and they verify it's 30 cents each new patron one time. And then going
Okay.
forward, a penny a text.
So if you want to send a text to everyone in this database, it costs what? Like a penny times 20,000 or something?
Correct.
Okay. I can't figure out math, so I don't know what that is.
$200.
2,000,
That's what I was.
20,000
Yeah.
times.
A penny.
Take out two of the
Take out
zeros.
2 zeros. So it's 2,000.
200.
I can't do it either. Sorry.
$200 a text to text everybody.
200.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. I mean,
This may have come up before, but what's the current fee for what the system we use?
So we don't have a system.
Don't have a
We don't have a patron engagement.
Okay, so this is totally new.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this came out of the original reason we looked this up was there was a concern about marketing the library services, our engagement with patrons as they come on. That it allows us to do some market segmentation and allow us to market in specific ways to specific groups. So we could look at parents of young children and not be texting or not be emailing or texting folks who are uninterested in children's programs. We could, obviously we'd have some wide targeted marketing, but also specific marketing to specific people with specific interests that they tell us which type of programs they're interested in, which type of services they're interested in, and just help get through the din of, supplementing, just putting the footnotes out, right, with that or the email newsletter.
Am I right in remembering there was an element of library card? Like right now, the system is very disjointed, and if they get a library card online, then they have to get a different card when they come in, and that this will help resolve that as well. Was that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to point out that we do pay about $6,000 a year for MailChimp currently for our email marketing, which we would need to because we could do that through Facebook. So that's money that we're already.
So that offsets some of the cost.
So if we have new patrons that don't want to opt into this, there is an opt-out and say they don't want text, they don't want to do any of it.
I think they have to tell us they want to get notified of their holds in some way.
Okay.
And that's usually it's about hold notifications. Is you have to give us some method. I think we still email some of those.
Do we still email and it gives us some duality? So it's not just patrons that we can text, we can create a group of library staff members. So Jeff says that library is going to close, we can mass text those people. So we can start pulling some of the services that are a little disjointed now. It may also give other people access. So if someone else needs to make that call, that person can go in. So there's a redundancy of notifications for at least staff members or virtually any groupings.
I was just thinking, there's always people that don't want to participate in any of this.
Yep.
And
Don't want to be marketed.
right,
That's okay.
or don't want you knowing what I like.
Yep.
So,
They can opt out.
So actually, I think it asks you if you want to opt in.
okay,
So the default is an opt out.
okay, that's even better.
Okay, I know this has been on the agenda like a gazillion times,
Yeah.
I think. So I may have not either remembering this correctly or we didn't discuss it. Current patrons.
Yeah.
How do they get connected to it? Like you're talking about new patrons, right? They opt in and does that question make sense? So you've got this.
It does. I just don't have a really good answer for you.
Oh,
So
it talk nice and loud.
Say you're a current patron and your card is up for renewal. Right now, we have this ad hoc thing that we put together to force cars to renew. This would allow you to renew straight through Patron Point, give you a full 3 years on your card, and we could verify that you still live in the area. Right now, we kind of do a mass renewal on everyone, and we hope that you're still here. And in fact, it's just, please notify us if your information's changed, is the representation. So it gives us a little more precision on the renewals. If you're an existing patron and you have a hold ready for pickup, you get that little email that's just a text block. This allows us to show you an image of what you have, in addition to where's the item located. And if you choose to opt in to read alikes, you might also like some of these items. And when you click on those items, it may be overdrive stuff you're looking at. So now it takes you to overdrive, or maybe the catalog, and it takes you to the catalog. So it gives you a little more interaction with even your whole emails.
So, but there's no en masse automatic conversion of everyone who's currently in the system to this, you understand what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I think what we would, the en masse would be the people that are currently subscribed to Kristen's email newsletter. That's sort of like level one.
Okay.
So all those people that have chosen, I mean, the people that opt out of that already, fine. And then the people who have opted into Kristen's email newsletter, the library's email newsletter, would be moved over, and they would get the same email. It would just come through Patron Point instead. And then there's, when that email comes, there's some other opportunities for them to sign up and say, I'm looking for this, or don't send me, just send me this email and that's all I'm looking for. Then they can control that a little bit more themselves.
So a good number of existing patrons, because they get the newsletter, will be
Right.
accessing this.
Right. And so we're going on MailChimp. What are we sending out now?
10,000.
10,000 or so. So it's not, we have, that's half the patrons. So it's not everybody, but it's a pretty good, it's a pretty good chunk of them.
Yeah.
And those are folks that tend to interact with us.
Thank you.
So. East Greenbush has this system currently. They're not fully implemented. My hope a little bit, and it's, I'm hoping for another library. I want this to be successful for them as well. If they were a little further along in their implementation, I think I could have a little bit more of a local example to show you, but they're not there yet. So I don't have that yet.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve the Patron Point software proposal.
So moved.
Okay, well, I'll second it then.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Smart.
I'm okay.
Motion carries.
Phil is smiling.
All right, public meeting policy.
Okay. So in the board packet is the revised draft of the public meeting policy.
I'll tee it up. So the purpose of this draft was really threefold. What you saw, we had three basic, I think, intentions here. The first was to take the discussions that the policy committee has had over the last several months, as well as previous iterations that we had drafted, and combine those materials with the framework that our attorney gave us for what the new categories of use. So that was the first goal. The second goal was to simply go through and continue standardizing things, defining defining terms, just paginating. That obviously will be an ongoing process, but we wanted to do that work. And then the third thing was, to the extent possible, to work in the comments that everyone had provided previously. So that is the draft that you received. The goal after this is that, as I think most of you have sent around, is we provided a chart asking everyone to give us the section of the policy you have a comment on, the current language, any changes that you propose to the language, and then your general comments about why you are raising issues about that section. I think what Mark and I hope to do on the next round is to make a master list of those comments so that we have everyone's comments, and then add a column of how we address that comment, or how we how we did not address that comment. And I think that there's two things that we want to raise about that, is that every comment, we are considering every comment, we are discussing every comment. We cannot promise that every comment will have an action attached to it. In some cases, it will combine with other comments. In some cases, it may not be feasible. In some cases, it's a judgment call to some extent. Our goal is to create a comprehensive document. We are hoping to have the next turn of that to you before the next board meeting.
Okay, good.
So that this can continue to move along. And just one more thing that I want to point out, not necessarily for the board, but for members of the public as we go into the discussion of this policy, is that we are not required to have this policy. The First Amendment works two ways. You can offer the rooms, or you can say the rooms are not open. Both are equally protective of the First Amendment. One is obviously harder than the other. This board has chosen the harder option. There is consensus on, there seems to be consensus on this board that people want the rooms to be open, and that we are working toward a policy to get us there. And always remember that because this is a brand new draft, this is a brand new this is a sea change to our policies, is that the document, while we want it to be as static as possible as we open the rooms and as we learn things in real time and discover how things applied work, there is always the opportunity to work with the document as the system perfects itself. So. I think that I was just going to say, we have your comments. I know that everyone, I think, was going to bring them today. If you wanted to comment on it, I would say that we have kind of your granular comments. I think the discussion is probably most useful toward your global concerns and, the items that you really that you think are of top concern for us to address or are deficient in the current draft.
I think for me, it's most useful if someone wants to raise a major issue, but to let you and Mark work with the material just to create a different, because I know that I had to go quickly look at what everyone provided, and I would behoove me to try to figure out how to frame a discussion around that here without you having time to, and Mark having time to reflect on it. But that's just my overall perspective. And then also, if at all possible, to give us it'd be lovely to have a week before the next board meeting. I know that it's a truncated timeline, but it just gives us a bit more time to look at and digest and all the rest. Thank you. And thank you for the work on it.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Carolyn for all the work on this as well, and also to the people watching. You should read the policy. You should come to the public input part of this of every board meeting and give your input on the policy as well.
I do think as language evolves and we get closer to like a unified draft to comment on it, I know I will have want to raise for discussion some key points that is based on content once that content gets clearer. For example, the sponsoring of events by other organizations. I want to hear how trustees feel about that. Or so for me at this point, because again, I think kind of in layers, is to get a clearer sense of what, once you address the feedback of the board on the content and flow and editing, that becomes then a policy to review for any major issues that the board wants to discuss that there may be divergent opinions on. Does that make sense? Right now, we're just trying to get the language down and the concepts down.
Yeah, I will say and Mark, please jump in, keep me honest. I will say that
Sure.
The themes that we saw in the comments and the things that I would say are in the nascent stages of being addressed. We kind of put language in there that I think very much needs to be discussed and workshopped. A theme I think that everyone had is better clarifying the four, I'll call the four buckets, the four new categories of use, and continuing to put language in there that clarifies what that bucket is, who it is intended for, how it will work. So I think that is a goal for the next draft, and we continue to welcome your comments on that, but that was certainly a theme. A theme that we definitely saw was the question about 501c3 groups. That is, I think most trustees had a question about that, about how that will work. The initial addressing of that is the sponsorship, is the opportunity for certain groups to sponsor others. I think we will continue to work on that issue. And then I think just the last issue that we saw consistently was, the trickiest one of all, which is discretion, which is the question of discretion in the document. And I think that that's something that we have to think about of the board as a board, is that in some cases, discretion is necessary. I'll give an example that I think came up a lot, and that is a hard one to solve, which is the new draft states that if in the discretion of the director determines that a program from the outside requires additional security, we can require that of the group. There were certainly comments that can that be used in a discriminatory fashion? And I would say the answer to that is yes. Yes, it could. A person who is given that power could use that in a discriminatory way. But is that discretion in the policy discriminatory until it is used in a discriminatory way? And is it worth putting in the policy if we want security at certain events, or if we feel that the library needs extra protection at certain events, or we want to make that a qualification? I offer no opinion on that. I'm just saying that is, I think, an example of a question that is very tricky, and that we're going to have to decide which way we want to. That's a question of discretion. When are we okay with the discretion of the director, even if we do not anticipate that Jeff would, but any discretion can be abused.
Okay, so going forward, then the policy committee is going to collate all of our input, and we'll receive that with time to review before the next.
I think our goal, Mark, and again, keep me honest, I think our goal is to get that to you with at least a week lead time. And I mean, my goal right now is to give you a redrafted policy, at least to the board, that chart of your comments and how each one was addressed, and maybe just a short document that outlines, again, the themes that we saw as recurrent among the comments, and the issues that those comments raise.
All right.
But hopefully this is the document that is the document now. This is the one that's getting changed. It will be a different version, but this is the document that is going to morph into the final version.
Sure, it's the working draft. It's
Yes.
a single working draft. And just to correction, Michelle, it's that the policy committee, I think a bunch of meetings back, the board decided that for this policy, the entire board, it doesn't go through the policy committee anymore. It's Mark and Caroline are drafting it, and then the entire board is just working basically as a policy committee on this particular item, right? I think.
Yeah, I believe that this will go to a vote of the.
Right, what I was confirming was that you'll get a draft of the chart to us.
We will, yes.
Yeah.
And so how I describe it is you're parsing the words for the feedback, and then at some point the concepts, any concepts like discretion or sponsorship, well then once we get the wording kind of figured out, we'll bring those items to the point.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
And I will also add in that any policy will go in for attorney review. I mean, we might think something's a great idea that simply does not, for legal reasons, does not pass muster. So just a reminder that any final version of this, before it goes to a board vote, will have attorney review.
Yep. Probably several times.
Yep.
And I personally did not realize that I could have just used the cut and paste function. Because I think a lot of people actually did what you and Mark asked about the text, and I didn't really have as much time. So I was giving you like snippets to orient you to where in the policy, but I think a lot of people could have just cut and pasted it right into the graph. But if you have any questions on my feedback, let me know.
Mark, did I miss anything?
No, I think that was well said. Very well said. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks everyone for turning the comments so quick.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Give you more time next round.
Before we move on, Jeff, I don't want to put you on the spot, but how are meetings going? And
We're doing okay. I mean,
Okay.
I think the some confusion about the capacity limits on the room. I think there's been questions about that, but I mean, there haven't been any incidents, right? So everything's moving along. I think people are overall overjoyed to have access to the rooms again. So that's a serious positive. And so far so good. So we're moving along. Things are, the policy, as we found, was not perfect, but it is good enough for a working thing for now, given the constraints that we've put on the capacity limits for the room. I think it's going well.
I have a quick question on that. So right now, there's limits on the number of people in particular rooms. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so organizations should know that limit could be reached by members of their group.
Yeah.
Or somebody else.
They are everybody who books a room now. We've got language that's worked out by the person whose job it is to communicate with members of the public as they book their rooms. And then any questions that come back, they get answered in a more robust way. But that information about the capacity of the room size, as well as with some of our community groups, their numbers, with a capacity of 50, their numbers are close, though in actuality, a lot of people would have asked traditionally for 55 or 60, but there's not actually ever 55 or 60 people that come into the room, rarely, I should say. So they've just been made aware that it's their responsibility to make sure that the room doesn't go over capacity. We've controlled how many chairs are in the room, so that kind of self-limits a little bit. So there's not the full, when we see that there's a meeting that could come close to the capacity, there's not extra chairs. There's not 80 or 90 chairs in the room. There's just the amount of chairs that are supposed to be in there capped at 50.
So that's good to know. So organizations know that's the first 50, regardless of if they're members of their group.
Correct.
Or somebody else. Right.
Because right now, all of those allowable uses that would allow the room to be closed, for instance, an individual person is checking out the room, or if they had a rental agreement that allowed the room to be closed, none of that's in effect. So every meeting is open all the time. So that's just, I did have a request from the federal government. I had a request from a department of the federal government that they wanted to do an interview in here, and they requested that the room be closed. But I was like, no, I don't have a mechanism to allow that to happen. It would be allowable under certain conditions under the new policy. But I'm like, you can't do an all-day interview in the library. That's not an allowable use, even though it seems not a problem. It's the federal government, but it's just not something that we could accommodate this time. That's the weirdest one so far. That's been the weirdest, not able to be met request. Everybody else is been able to come in and have access to it.
Well, and good that it would be covered under the new policy. So
Right.
we're holding the right
Yeah, I
direction.
mean, we've had that discussion. Is these affiliated organizations, the school district, the town? We've said, instantly, the town, Parks and Rec, the school district, those are affiliated organizations. Sign an MOU with them, but is the state government, is the county government also an affiliated organization? Would we give them access to the room in ways that are, that might meet their needs, but not? Might be different than the way the public would have access to the rooms. We've had that discussion, and I'll be bringing it up as we move forward with our public meeting policy too. Because is the federal government, do they have special privileges to the meeting rooms or not? I don't want to end up on the no-fly list.
Okay, so we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is the naming opportunities policy. Page 59.
There should be.
That's the last meeting, first read. If there's any other comments, if not, it goes up to second read and approval.
I think we made small
Editorial.
editorial changes to this,
Yeah.
right? Capitalization, things like that.
Wordsmithing, yeah.
I have I've mentioned this at other meetings, number 8. I have some reservations about the board being able to terminate a name designation for any reason. Can someone give me an example, like just an imaginative example of why you would terminate someone's gift?
Jeffrey Epstein had named a room at the library.
OJ Simpson.
I'm sorry.
That was Mark. He said OJ Simpson. So I think it, like Jeffrey Epstein was a philanthropist, gave us named a library room 20 years ago. And
Well, let me give you a super non-controversial, might be controversial, but a less individually controversial example. We're renovating a space. Let's say we were renovating the boardroom, and that had been, someone had given a name, but we were cutting it up into 2 different rooms. You've renovated the space. It's a new space. The board may terminate and say, this is a completely different thing. You sponsored this. It's been there for 25 years, and now it's a completely different space. And the board may terminate that naming designation on that room, not out of any controversial thing, but it's now it's a new thing. Okay, so let me give you another well, it's controversial. The benches out front. If we do a renovation of the library and there's a new, a new plaza and a new way the grounds are redesigned, are the benches incorporated into the new design? That's something that will have to be talked about here at the board. That the right to do that, though, is that right?
My sense is, Michelle, we have kind of discussed that, and I think the majority of trustees felt comfortable leaving it in there. And my sense is, should there be a situation that is called more controversial for a reason, a name is being removed for a reason because it will bear negatively on the library to keep it on there. Let me put it that way. That board would have that discussion. And that people could disagree at that time to say that it should remain. But I think most trustees felt like this should stay vague and open-ended.
Well, and they're looking at this and when they give the donation, right? So they know up front that it's a possibility that it could happen.
Yeah, how would they know that up front? Are they gonna be signing a form or a contract or something that says?
If they get the policy, and then we'll have to, like, I think there's supposed to be an associated form that we haven't even worked on, but yeah.
they would also know because it's in the policy, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the second read, does it go up for a vote now, or do we do that next time?
Nope.
All right, so I'll take a motion to accept the naming opportunities policy.
So.
All those in favor?
Yay.
All those opposed? I would like to abstain on my vote. Okay. All right. Okay, so motion pass. Carries. Motion
Just want to
carries.
thank everyone, as particular Jen. Thank Jen and Jeff. We have spent many hours and also the policy committee and all the trustees for weighing in. This has been with us for quite a long time, and I feel it's a great accomplishment. And I just want to remind the board, the first read, second read thing is just, we've been using that for the last year and a half as the policy committee. There is nothing that locks us into that process. I appreciate so much the feedback and the persistence and the patience.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the building project.
Okay, so I don't have a ton to talk about right now. We've talked about it sort of spaced throughout the property consolidation. We have done a lot of work in the past month, working as I described in our director's report. Jen is working with the school district to prepare us to hold our vote in this room. You've taken a step for that tonight by hiring Judy Kehoe as our chief elections inspector, and that's great, and it feels like a warm blanket to me. So thank you for doing that. I definitely can use her advice on this, And, we'll just keep moving forward. I think there's nothing that I see that would stop the vote from taking place from where we are. All the pieces are not yet in place, but there's no significant roadblock to us. We're establishing our vendor relationships for the ballots to make sure that we have, we're doing the early voting and the absentee voting properly. We'll be working on setting up this room. We've already contacted the Board of Elections with the county. That's all in motion. And once the property consolidation, which can happen in a very quick way, the property consolidation with the school board will be in good shape and plenty of time to establish that property ownership question. And then that makes the seeker process a lot simpler. So that's where we are.
All right, thank you.
Since we're talking, this is probably the last time we're talking about the building project tonight. I want to reinforce or reiterate my I think we should go to the President's Council meeting in May and start talking. Sarah's on the President's Council. I'd be willing to go. We're just to ask Jody Moran for 10 minutes, have some nice handouts. Because if we wait till the September to get into those PTA meetings, it's just so packed. So just start getting people idea that we're going to be coming with information. We really love your support. Rah. This is what it is. And the meetings are every other. So that's the only one before this summer.
And I think it's at the end of this month, actually. I think it's like the 30th or something like that.
So I would recommend to reach out if the board thinks that's great for Jody Monroe, get on that agenda. I'd be willing to go, but just sit there as a quiet partner, but to just somehow say, you probably would hear about this. If we're going to use those as conduits for information in the fall. And I'd also recommend that if there's chamber meetings in the summer, Progress Club meeting in the summer, to get a sense of those meetings and get board, even though there may be fewer attendees because it's a summer meeting, the board's members should parse those up and get out and start in the summer, start attending those meetings, just talking it up so that by the time the September rolls around, got a month to go. If we wait till September, we've missed opportunities.
And just to add to that, the farmer's market starts in 2 weeks? We should table that on a pretty regular basis. The boards look great up there.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the President's Council goes, and because that's coming up so soon, and we have Charmaine and probably Sarah who will be there. Jeff, is there a way that we could have staff, a person from staff attend with them and bring the pictures, the architect's pictures that we have?
Absolutely. So I'm happy to attend all of those things. I think it's, as long as we're cognizant of the restrictions on me as an employee, talk about the project, I give information about the project, right? So, and I'm pretty careful about that, but I am absolutely ready to support any of these endeavors in whatever way from, especially from a logistical standpoint. I can be there. We'll make it happen. We'll get the boards there. Whatever support the board needs in order to accomplish these things, we can do. So, absolutely.
Generally, how I've seen it is informational purposes only, and then where we follow up with a rah is great. I mean, I know this is how the district has done in the past, but and again, we may not all have that much time, but just say we have information at the library, but instead of relying on people coming here to get information, it's now time to go to them.
Do we know whether we can put any signage or displays up at the May election up at the school?
You can't put anything at the Mayo. I mean, that might be considered electioneering. There's distances from that. So I would really caution us to be super careful about that.
Even a notation that there would be a bond vote, and in case people are looking for it in May
To
versus,
say, where's the,
right,
yeah. I
Ask Judy Keough.
yeah. Well,
yeah,
It's a good idea. I mean, I know people are interested.
because
in
people may
information, so
expect it in May, and in fact,
it's gonna be an October.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so next item on the agenda is bulletin board policy.
Just a quick discussion. This was talked about a little bit at the policy committee. I didn't want to let it go. It clearly, the meeting room policy has been dominating a lot of our discussions, but we're looking at other bulletin board policies and we'll come back with a recommendation. Mostly this is an interpretation, may involve tweaking the language in that policy a little bit, but it's that interpretation about, the bulletin board about, because we've been talking about sales on the property are so important. And I appreciated last month's discussion where we were talking about that, that these nonprofits, you're doing a chicken dinner, you're not selling the chicken on the library property. It's just an announcement that that's happening. And that's an allowable use on the TV-18, which is the public access station. I just think we need to get that clarified, and that expecting we'll have that back for next month.
So the clarification on the bulletin board policy really is going to be in the meeting room policy.
They're closely tied. I mean, so the solicitation policy, the meeting room policy, some stuff on that. Well, I mean, because it's a different use, right? So the bulletin board is a different use than the rooms, and the solicitation that we talk about in the solicitation policy is about selling things on the property. The question is it allowable for us to allow the VFW to talk about a pancake breakfast on our bulletin board, which is a use that they've done for years? That is a solicitation, right? So it would not be an allowable use in the meeting room, but is it an allowable thing to put an announcement of that on the bulletin board?
But to your point, you're right that it does tie to the policy, to the meeting room policy. The goal is to make sure that, let's say, those three policies that Jeff just mentioned, the solicitation, bulletin board, and meeting room, are all consistent and distinguished as appropriate. Consistent but distinguished as appropriate.
Yeah.
So we can distinguish a commercial activity is selling books, but if you are a not-for-profit soliciting money, donations to your not-for-profit, or an event for your not-for-profit, this is still under discussion. No one quote me. That is not the same as commercial. That is not commercial activity.
Well, is it? And that you got it. That's
Yes.
That's what that issue, because the way the solicitation distribution policy is written, it left an interpretation there, and I would seek clarity on that.
I know as a patron over many years of this library, I've often used the bulletin board to educate myself on whatever's going on this week.
Absolutely.
Or sometimes dog walking, tutoring, that kind of thing is listed up there as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know of another bulletin board in town except for the one at McCarroll's. I love the bulletin board. I'd like to see it stay around. So we'll see how this progresses, and if it does comply.
Yeah,
stay within our policy.
I think sometimes I get this reputation as coming across as anti-business. I am not. I don't think businesses are evil at all. I certainly don't think that our nonprofits in the area are evil at all. It's just a question of what's an allowable use under given the restrictions of a government entity. How do we work forward with that? So we'll get that clarified, and I think.
Do you think, Jeff, that we should maybe do a policy committee this month?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to stick this one back on? I thought we already discussed it, but anyway, put this one back on, and then maybe pick one or two other, if guess we're running behind on something, and we'll just load those on and see if we can come up with some recommendations. Is that what we're doing?
It seems reasonable. I mean, this one probably enough with the public meeting policies in the background churning, and I think we could focus on this one and get it. If we can get this squared away, and it's because it's 2 in 1. It's bulletin board and the interplay of the bulletin board and the solicitation and distribution policy. I think we can get that clarified. It may involve tweaks to both of them. So I think that's 2 policies, and I think that's probably enough for the policy committee to go on.
I'm pretty sure sales and solicitation got passed just fairly recently, but let's make sure they're both consistent. So the task before the policy committee would be look at the bulletin board, make a recommendation, and make sure it's consistent with sales and solicitation.
You got it.
Okay, so we'll probably try to get that on the calendar for our usual Thursday night or something.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any other old business? Any future business? Mark, we have you still up there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right, no future business, and then we'll go back and check for public participation. Oh, yep, we got one.
Just real quick, I going back to the meeting room policy, and I and expectedly there would be more discussion tonight than there obviously was. I looked at the policy on Friday evening and went through it quickly and then looked at it in more detail on Saturday. And about on my second or third detailed reading of it, I finally took out my computer and started listing problems or issues that I thought I had with it. And obviously I don't have the benefit of all your discussions and everything we went through. But I ended up with something like 2 pages of specific, very specific points, questions, comments, ambiguities, et cetera, et cetera. My thought had been that I would hear what you're going to say tonight and then maybe try to revise this, but there was no substantive discussion, so obviously no revisions have been made. So Jeff, can I ask you? I just brought one copy of what I had. If I could give it to you, and what would you like me to do? Email a copy to you or to the board, or how would I? Just how?
If you email a copy to me, then I'll forward it to the board.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah, and I mean, you're gonna look at this and you're gonna say, I don't know what I'm talking about on some things, or I'm out of bounds, or I misunderstood what you're getting at. But I think I'm coming at it from the perspective of somebody who hasn't been involved in your discussions, and I'm just seeing what's on paper, and I'm drawing conclusions and inferences from it. You may tell me I'm right on some of those, and I'm wrong on some of those, but it's just thank you. So, thank you.
Any other public participation?
Melinda?
Just so you know, you have 3 minutes, and Jeff will let you know when when you get to 30 seconds.
Great. I'm just noticing, well, I'm a member, I'm a Friends member. Okay, new, in those meetings. I'm noticing that the mission statement to go to the library hasn't been revised in 22 years. So it's in the building, you know, going out to the community. It might be time to look at that if it hasn't already been. Thank you.
That's part of the long range plan. Because
Okay, so now the board is going to move into executive session. So I move.
it's not highlighted one.
Yeah, okay. I move we enter into executive session to seek legal advice from the library's attorney per exemption 1083, matters confidential by federal or state law.
You need a second or a first?
I need a motion.
A motion, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Right, we will move into executive